Before we move in, do me a favor. Drop a comment with where you're watching from and how old you are. It helps me understand who else is dealing with HOA abuse, neighborhood corruption, and the kind of housing harassment that can wreck a family. Hit like, share this with someone who needs backup, and subscribe for more stories where homeowners fight back and win. Now, here's how one suburban bully burned my house and handed me everything I needed to take down her entire criminal empire. The smell of my daughter's burned teddy bear still clung to my jacket the day Constance Whitmore strutted into my courtroom like she owned it. That same dead-eyed smile she wore when she sprayed bleach into my late wife's roses. The same smirk she flashed while shaking down neighbors with fake HOA fines. She'd probably smiled just like that when she watched my home and everything I had left of my family go up in flames. But Constance made one fatal mistake. She never bothered to learn who she was destroying. I'm Thaddeus Morrison. For 15 years, I was a federal prosecutor. Today, I'm a federal judge. And the woman who turned my life to ash had just committed arson and mail and wire fraud against the one person in this district with both the patience and the legal tools to end her reign for good. 2 years earlier, life was simple. My 12-year-old daughter, Zara, and I lived in a modest craftsman in Willowbrook Heights. Faded blue siding, white trim, a tire swing I hung the day we moved in. My wife, Sarah, died of cancer 3 years before. The house held the last ordinary sounds of her life. I still reached for her mug each morning. The creak in the hallway floor still felt like her. On weekends, I coached Zara's little league team and helped Mrs. Lucy, our 80-something neighbor, carry groceries up her steps. Our neighborhood wasn't fancy, but it was safe, kind, and unpretentious. Block parties, a community garden, neighbors who shoveled one another's sidewalks without being asked. Technically, there was a homeowners association, but it hadn't met since the first Bush administration. No one missed it. Then the devil moved in next door. She arrived in a white Escalade that screamed, "Please notice me," designer athleisure, blowout hair, that glassy smile. Her husband worked overseas, oil money, always gone, which left Constance with unlimited time to reinvent our quiet street as her personal fiefdom. Within days, she printed business cards calling herself HOA Compliance Coordinator, a job that didn't exist in our barely there bylaws. She prowled sidewalks with a clipboard and a phone camera, measuring lawns, photographing porches, sniffing for violations that weren't real. You could hear the click of her heels before you saw her, like the Jaws theme for suburbanites. Her first target was my mailbox. Vintage cast iron, hand-painted numbers Sarah had brushed on while pregnant. 15 winters had given it character. Constance called it non-compliant and taped a notice to replace it in 48 hours or face daily fines. I laughed. Then I got serious. A county record search confirmed what every homeowner should check. Our HOA had never been properly incorporated. It had zero legal authority to enforce anything. That, combined with federal protections for government employees against discriminatory housing enforcement, meant her threats were worse than nonsense. They flirted with civil rights violations. I wrote a polite, firm letter explaining exactly that and invited her to stop harassing my family. That should have been the end. Instead, it lit the fuse. 3 days later, at dawn, I stepped outside and found her in Sarah's memorial rose garden, spritzing herbicide onto the root systems like she was misting orchids. "Morning, Thad," she chirped. "Just solving your little bee problem." There was no bee problem. There was only the woman killing the last living thing my wife had begged me to protect. My hands shook, but I didn't yell. I asked her to leave. She laughed and walked away, leaving the roses to curl and blacken under a cold October sun. That night I did what 18 months of prosecuting white-collar criminals taught me to do. I installed a full security system, 6 cameras, motion sensors, cloud backup. Predators escalate, and home surveillance is often the only way to document ongoing crimes for a real investigation. It paid off faster than I expected. 48 hours later, night vision caught Constance sneaking into my yard, dressed head to toe in black, pouring industrial bleach on roots, and tucking forged HOA violations under rocks. The paperwork looked official: fake meeting minutes, counterfeit neighbor signatures, formal seals that meant nothing. She even forged Mrs. Lucy's name. Mrs. Lucy can barely sign a check. Armed with video evidence of trespass, destruction of property, fraud, and forgery, I marched to the police station. Sergeant Rick Bellows slid my evidence folder back across the desk without opening it. "Mrs. Whitmore is a pillar of the community," he said. "Church volunteer, fundraisers. Maybe you're having adjustment issues since your wife passed." The metallic taste of anger filled my mouth. It wasn't just my roses she'd poisoned. It was the system. It got worse. On Zara's birthday weekend, my sister Rebecca drove 12 hours to surprise her. At dawn, a tow truck backed into my driveway and hooked her old Civic. "Guest parking violation," the driver grunted. "Cash only." Constance appeared with glossy flyers for new overnight restrictions. allegedly delivered to all homeowners. The rules were fake, the enforcement was real, and the tow company's name, Bellows Recovery, told me exactly how deep the rot ran. Rick's brother, Richard, owned it. He had a suspended towing license and 2 fraud convictions. We spent the afternoon in a grim warehouse paying cash for a car that had been legally parked. On the way home, I did what good prosecutors do. I built a case. County records showed our HOA never existed in any enforceable form. Complaint logs showed 47 violations filed in 18 months, everyone signed by Constance. The targets were always the same: single parents, elderly folks, minorities. Anyone least likely to lawyer up. Cross-referencing invoices, towing dockets, and phone records revealed a triangle of extortion. Constance manufactured infractions, Rick dismissed complaints, Richard towed cars and kicked back fees. A predatory HOA scam dressed up as neighborhood pride. That night I found Zara on her bedroom carpet, taping together a torn photograph. Sarah bending to help 3-year-old Zara pedal a tricycle. "The truck man dropped it," she whispered. "I can fix it if I'm really careful." Something Arctic settled into me. This wasn't about fines. This was about people who broke families for sport. I was done reacting. 2 weeks later, Constance crossed the line no civilized person touches. While I was in federal court on a wire fraud case, my phone lit up with emergency calls from Zara's school. She'd come home for lunch and found 2 men inside our house taking photos, bedrooms, my office, even our medicine cabinet. They told her little girl shouldn't question authority. By the time I reached her, she was pale and shaking, asthma inhaler clutched in a small fist. The men left behind a business card for Morrison Property Assessments LLC, a company registered that morning to a vacant lot. The certified inspector was Constance's unemployed cousin, Derek, whose resume included DUIs and a meth possession. Constance had weaponized a fake inspection company using my own name to terrorize my child. That night, I filed for a restraining order. With 18 months of documentation, a judge signed it immediately. 14 hours later, Constance filed a counter order claiming I stalked her, took photos at church, and threatened her life. A second judge, blind to context, signed it too. That's when I made the call that changed everything. "Marcus, it's Thad. I need a favor." Marcus Webb, my law school roommate, is the FBI's sharpest financial crimes investigator. "Run Constance Whitmore's finances. If this is about money, we'll find the truth." 48 hours later, he called back. "Your suburban tyrant is drowning in debt. 89 grand in back taxes on a rental. Husband's oil job ended. He's working at a truck stop. Escalade 3 payments from repo, 17 maxed cards. And here's the kicker. She's been collecting HOA assessments for 18 months. $340,000 to a community fund that doesn't exist." My prosecutor instincts hummed. Federal mail fraud for sending those invoices, wire fraud for transfers. If she targeted families based on race or family status, we were in Fair Housing Act territory, civil rights violations with real federal teeth. This wasn't just HOA abuse. It was organized housing fraud. I spent the next week calling in every favor I'd earned. Special Agent Rebecca Torres at the FBI's Economic Crimes Unit, IRS criminal investigation for tax evasion tied to unreported income. The Justice Department's Civil Rights Division for discriminatory enforcement patterns. Detective Luis Mendoza at the state's Public Corruption Unit for wiretaps on the Bellows brothers. Within days, we had a task force, court orders, and hidden cameras documenting everything: extortionate threats, illegal towing, forged minutes, fake Willowbrook Community Services, invoices for landscaping, pool maintenance, security patrols, none of which existed. The digital trail was devastating. Texts from Constance to Derek. "Start with single parents and old people. They won't fight." Browser history. How to make federal prosecutor look unstable custody hearing. Spreadsheets tallying illegal fines like profits in a business plan. This wasn't messy, it was methodical. Then came the frame-up. I came home one evening to a jimmied door and rooms turned over, not ransacked, searched. On the kitchen table sat a manila envelope labeled "Evidence of Judicial Misconduct," stuffed with forged bank statements and emails designed to suggest bribery. A letter on federal letterhead from me to Constance, violent and idiotic, dated the day C-SPAN recorded me testifying before Congress 3 states away. FBI surveillance cameras caught Derek breaking in, while Constance directed him from her car over Bluetooth. "Plant it on the table where he'll find it. Get fingerprints on everything." The audacity was breathtaking and stupid. By morning, a local station aired "Federal Judge Under Investigation," with anonymous quotes about my erratic behavior. The story was calibrated to wound, hedged with allegedly and sources say, just enough to trigger reviews that would drag for years. Then Child Protective Services called. An anonymous tip claimed drugs, guns, dangerous visitors. The investigator, a 20-year veteran, took one look at my home, spoke with Zara, and closed the case as unfounded. "They'll probably try again," she warned. "People who file false CPS reports escalate until someone gets hurt." We didn't have to wait long. Our wiretaps caught Constance talking about Phase 3, permanent solutions to neighborhood problems. Desperate criminals don't go quietly. They burn everything down and hope to walk away in the smoke. The fire started midday on a Tuesday. I was still in court when the texts hit. House fire at 847 Maple. I broke every traffic law between downtown and my street. 3 blocks away I smelled accelerant, the chemical bite of planned destruction. Flames had gutted the first floor. On Mrs. Lucy's lawn, Zara watched our life burn, ash streaking her face, tears carving lines through soot. ATF arrived fast. Special Agent Monica Rodriguez's team treated our house like a bomb scene. Accelerant traces, timer devices, purposeful ignition points. Then the nail. Mrs. Lucy's doorbell camera showed Derek entering our side door with a duffel at 1:47 p.m. He'd left fingerprints on containers, dropped his driver's license in my basement, and used his own credit card for timers at Home Depot. He folded in hours, confessing to save himself from domestic terrorism charges. Constance promised him $10,000 from HOA fees. Wiretaps captured her voice 3 hours before the fire. "Use enough accelerant to destroy everything. Start in the basement, then the kitchen where he keeps his files. He's in court, the kids at school. Even if someone's hurt, they brought it on themselves." That last sentence turned arson into attempted murder under federal law. By midnight, a parade of federal vehicles surrounded her house. Tactical agents went in. She came out in silk pajamas and handcuffs, that smug smile finally gone. The last thing she saw before the van's doors closed was me holding my daughter on Mrs. Lucy's lawn, watching justice arrive. 6 months later, the circus began. United States vs. Constance Whitmore and Derek Whitmore drew cameras from 3 states. I'd recused myself. Judge Patricia Hernandez presided, a legend on the bench, with 0 patience for predators who targeted families. The gallery overflowed. Mrs. Lucy sat in her best dress. Neighbors clasped hands. 23 victims filled the rows. The evidence played like a masterclass in hubris: wiretaps, surveillance, invoices, bank records, texts, and in one damning clip, Constance's own voice ordering a house burned to erase 18 months of her crimes. Judge Hernandez asked if she had anything to say about discussing a plan that might have killed a 12-year-old. Her lawyer begged her to stay quiet. Constance stood instead, shackles clinking, and tried to justify it as protecting community standards. In that moment, she confessed to arson, harassment of a federal employee, housing discrimination, out loud on the record without remorse. The room sucked in its breath. Even her attorney looked like he wanted the floor to open. The sentence was swift: 15 years in federal prison for Constance, 8 for Derek, with supervised release. Restitution, $473,000 to be paid to the families she robbed and to cover property damage and punitive damages. Sergeant Rick Bellows later lost his pension and served time for public corruption. His brother's illegal towing operation was seized and sold. 2 years on, the smell of coffee mingles with roses as I sit in our rebuilt kitchen. Insurance, federal victim compensation, and neighbors who found their courage helped us lay new foundations. Zara's room overlooks a memorial garden where Sarah's roses bloom alongside plants donated by every family Constance tried to break. Mrs. Lucy tends them at sunrise, her weathered hands coaxing life from ground that tasted fire. Willowbrook Heights became something rare, a neighborhood that actually protects people. We formed a legitimate HOA with bylaws written by real attorneys, audited annually, financials posted publicly. Property values climbed because buyers sought a community with a backbone. The recovered restitution funded solar streetlights, a playground, and free legal clinics where we teach property rights, how to verify incorporation through county records, how to spot illegal HOA fines, how to document HOA harassment, how to file a civil rights complaint when discrimination rears its head. Our Willowbrook Heights Justice Fund has now helped dozens of families fight HOA abuse across the country. Zara, now 16 and fierce with her mother's determination, speaks at our annual festival about turning trauma into purpose. The best revenge for people who try to destroy you, she told a crowd of 600, is building something beautiful where they left ashes. The applause felt like a promise. As for Constance, she's in year 3 of 15 at Danbury, learning that entitlement doesn't survive long in a place where real accountability lives. Derek washes dishes in Oregon, sending restitution checks that will reach our neighbors for decades. The Bellows name no longer intimidates anyone. The trucks that once preyed on struggling families now serve legitimate businesses. If you're trapped under a predatory HOA, hear me. You are not alone. Document everything. Demand incorporation documents and financial records. Report mail fraud, wire fraud, and housing discrimination to the proper agencies. Ask for a restraining order when you need one. Organize your block. Start a neighborhood watch. Pool resources for a lawyer. Federal jurisdiction exists for a reason. When local systems get corrupted, there are still ways to protect your family and your home. Your turn. Share your HOA horror story in the comments. Tell us where you're from so others nearby can connect. If this story helped, hit like and subscribe. We're building a library of real cases where homeowners took on HOA abuse, exposed housing fraud, fought civil rights violations, and rebuilt after arson, because good people win when they refuse to surrender. And the war for your neighborhood always starts with one brave family willing to stand up. Let it be yours.